Hello, welcome to an exciting episode of Pete vs. Anxiety. My guest today is an alcohol-free empowerment coach, author, speaker, Reiki master teacher, dedicated to helping ambitious women reclaim their freedom through elective and conscientious sobriety. Please welcome in the author of Blurred Lines, My Reclamation of Power from Alcohol and Addiction. And P.S. You're Not Powerless. The one, the only Lauren Faye.
Hey, Pete. Thank you for having me today.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I know we were supposed to meet at an earlier time, but it's a perfect time. The book's out now. So, Lauren, why don't you tell everybody a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, so the introduction was great, but really who I am today, alcohol-free empowerment coach. I help women change their relationship to alcohol, but more importantly than that is like creating that life after alcohol because it's such an identity shift, isn't it? I mean, you would know, like man or a woman, it's like you go from doing one thing for so long and you're going into a new way of living now and there's that question of what now? Who am I without it? And so that's just from my own personal experience as well. I'll be 8 years alcohol free sober. I'll be 8 years sober in January.
That's
And
awesome.
while it was, yeah, thank you so much. And, I use the word lightly when I say easy, but while it was easy to give up the substances for me because I actually really did want to stop using the substances. What was hard was like, how do I exist in this world now? And because I went through that personally, I just find it to be a mission almost to help others through that process.
Yeah. It makes sense though, because alcohol is everything. Think about it. Most places you go into, there's like a massive wall of it just right there. It's so widely advertised too is, oh, well, you're not cool unless you're drinking, just like smoking, back in the 90s with Joe Camel was, oh, well, you can be like Joe Camel, the
Mm.
Marble Man, things like that. The people are just using these things to basically say, oh, well, it's cool. You're not cool if you're not a part of the party, So, I mean, it makes sense though, because a lot of people, a lot of places you go, it's like alcohol is everywhere. It's always thrown in your face. Or it's always brightly colored or really like catchy advertisements to try and catch your attention and get you to join in. Because if not, you don't want to be left out on this.
That's exactly it. It's for someone like me who wanted to stop drinking, suddenly I didn't belong anymore, because like you were just saying, we live in a society that's completely saturated by alcohol, completely lubricated by alcohol. And it's just kind of become a part. There's the associations like, how can you possibly get married without champagne at your wedding? Or how can you possibly go to a baby shower, without mimosas? And so it's just so in there. And then you take out that habit or that action, that behavior. And now how do you fit in? And that is such a crisis
Exactly.
for the human experience because connection is the number one desire. And so it is learning how to do that without this thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The thing that definitely just, and it alters you too. So a lot of people, in my interaction, I've met a couple of people that are like, well, I can't drink hard liquor because I end up getting, like, I get wild. Like, there's stories of my own there. I like, out there, the things that I did when I got pretty drunk. There's some wild stories that go on out there, and it's a lot of times it's always like, oh man, you should hear about the crazy thing I did last night. It's like, well, I drove home drunk. I'm like, well, you feel accomplished about that? How? Like, you almost probably could have killed somebody. You probably wouldn't even realized it, but you're okay with that. Okay, all right. Well, I guess, we normalize this. Apparently, this is okay to do because if you're not getting, fall over drunk, then you're not a part of the party.
Yeah, gosh, there's so many different directions we can take that. From my personal story, I was one of those that slid under the radar. I had
Yeah.
so many almosts and very little serious repercussions. And sometimes it does take that like 3 by 5 across the face, right, to finally change your behaviors. But when you don't get that, it makes it a little bit harder to maybe self acknowledge that, hey, my behavior is not really appropriate, or I'm not. I'm not proud of the way I'm acting, or maybe it is a problem because when we compare it to other people's air quote problems, ours seemingly aren't big enough anymore. And that's a huge, huge issue. I'm definitely a big advocate on the problem is a problem as soon as you decide it is. Once you decide that your life is no longer the way you want to be living it, or you're not as, energized or fulfilled or whatever, satisfied as you want to be, and you've identified this one thing as maybe a culprit, then that's a problem, right? And you want to rectify the problem. So it doesn't
exactly.
have to be this down and out getting the DUIs and or, living under a bridge or being broke or being home. It just doesn't have to be any of those things, but we kind of have set that as the standard as that's when you have a problem, and that's just not true. So that right
Yeah,
there is the
yeah,
problem.
what was it early on? It was MySpace and all those things where you're posting your pictures. Oh, I post these videos where I just got complete crazy. And it's like, like if you think like hangover, it's like you get that drunk that you don't remember doing these wild acts. And then it's like you're proud of these acts. Like, when I had my really bad phase where I went through, like I'm nowhere near a lot of people, but I was like, I don't even remember the whole accounts of what happened. So like we were celebrating something and I don't remember anything. I remember getting there and I remember getting home. I don't remember I got home. So like I went there and there's stories about how I got so blackout drunk that I was literally passed out behind the couch. I got up and continued to go and they're just celebrating this like this is a great achievement. And then in the morning, I disappeared and no one knew where the hell I was. So I kind of like proverbially Phil in, like the hangover setting. Like no one knew where the hell I was because I just disappeared. Like they had my car boxed and everything. And apparently what had happened was that there were two people that were there. They were parked behind me, apparently. So apparently somehow I found my keys. I drove home about 30, 40 minutes on a highway. And I'm talking like a 4-lane highway, a lot of traffic, and I made it all the way home, luckily, without doing anything stupid or hitting
Yeah.
anybody. And then it was like people were panicking because they're like, "Well, we can't find you." And then, like, I got in my car when I finally came to realize where I was. I was at home, and then I got a lecture from my old man. He was yelling at me. He was like, "I thought you were going to hang out with your friends." Or I'm like, "Oh yeah, man, I was there. Like, I got. What do you mean?" I'm like, "I don't even remember how you got home." He goes, "So you drove drunk?" I'm like, I don't really know. To be honest with you." He goes, "It's even worse. You don't even remember what you're doing. So like, how do you know you didn't hit somebody?" The usual questions that would come up with that. It's like, you don't remember this thing. I'm like, no. So like repiecing the story back together, it was just like you look dumb at the end of the day because it's like you just drove 30, 40 minutes home and you have no recollection of what you're doing. You're on a major highway, mind you. You're going down this major intersection. And I'm in the Dallas Fort Worth area, so like we're talking busy intersection. Like
Yeah.
you could be going any time of the day depending when you're there. It could be like lane to lane traffic and things. And I don't know what's going on at this point. Everybody's panicking because nobody can find me because they're all calling me. So I got in the car to go do something because I had the worst hangover ever. And I kept hearing a
Sure.
phone ringing in the back seat. And that's why I started piecing the story together. Like, oh my God, dude, you're okay. We couldn't find you, man. Where the hell have you been? I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, all I know is I remember coming to the party and waking up in the backyard and sitting next to the pool side by my parents' pool because that's where I lived at the time was with my parents. And they were like, my friends were like, dude, where you at? What? I'm like, yeah, I don't remember this, man. And then they started calling me fish. And I was like, yeah, it was not fun. It really wasn't. It
For
was,
how
it was
much you
kind of
drank.
embarrassing. God, yes. It
Yeah,
was,
there are so many so many cringeworthy stories, and we do those reckless things, and I know it's like someone might be listening and be like, "Well, I don't do that, so I'm not that bad." And again,
yeah,
it just goes
exactly.
back to well, how is it personally impacting your life? Who doesn't matter
Mhm.
what I did, it doesn't matter what Pete did, it doesn't matter what your best friend does. How's it impacting your life? But when I look back on my own personal stories, like the one you just shared, I mean, I have many similar stories where it's like just the shame that follows the actions, and now in the hindsight where I am a sober woman and for the last 8 years I've cared very deeply about how I treat my body, what I put in my body, what I let around my body. I kind of grieve for the woman that self-harmed the way she did, with alcohol. Not even just the quantity that I put into my body, but the risk I put my body in driving drunk, the risk I put other people in, driving drunk, things like that, the
Yeah.
blackouts where you
And
just
then,
don't remember.
the whole risk of that too, and then remember the
Mhm.
whole date rape thing comes up for women especially. Men don't leave the category either, but women are more likely to be, in that area of things, and all these other things that happen, and it's like, well, I don't remember doing these kind of things. Well, oh man, and it's like, yeah, it's just like it's scary how, with now with social media, you gotta think now we amplify these things because now people can see this on a larger scale and they're like, "Oh yeah, I wanna go party like that too." And it's like, do you really though? I mean, I think that's the biggest thing with people admitting they have a problem is I think it's the hardest part. Myself, I have my own problems I deal with like that too. Like I have trouble admitting I'm wrong is one of my biggest issues, like you take that for an example. Like, I hate to admit that I'm wrong, and I know when it comes to alcohol and so it's hard because it's like you have to watch these people self-destruct even though you wanna help them so bad, but you have to wait till they want help though, and that's the scary part about it. It's like, when is it gonna be too much though? For all you know, like, this person could end up in a fatal car crash and there's nothing you can do because you're doing basically what you're told. It's like you have to sit and watch these people basically self-destruct and you have to sit back and hope you're not getting that phone call one day of like, "Oh, I'm sorry, so and so was in a fatal car crash and we've lost them unfortunately."
Yeah. That you're talking about something that is very, very real, for a lot of people. When it comes to the person who's addicted to the substance getting sober, that
Mhm.
is 100% an inside job. The person has to do it for themselves, right? Like, no one can do it for that person.
Yeah.
Obviously, external environment plays a big role. Support plays a big role, but you can only do so much. You can't like, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
the sad truth is there are a lot of people that will not survive their relationship to alcohol, and that is just pure devastation, and it really kinda cultivates this, like, helplessness feeling for the outsider that wants to help. But then there are the people that do get sober or that do change their behaviors, and they are, the success stories, for lack of a better word, and that could have been because of external support, and it also could have been because that person just decided on their own they were done with their own bullshit, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so but like you were saying, at
Well,
the end of the day, it's that person. Yeah.
but it also leads to the question, Lauren, is that what can someone do in that situation? Like anybody that's in the outside looking in, watching this person self-destruct, do you have any tips or anything you could help them maybe help probably help them try and realize that there's a problem, obviously.
The biggest thing I think is just that compassion. I mean, obviously, so I was the person that was addicted, and so I get to see it from my standpoint, and I had family that they actually didn't know how bad it was because I did a lot of my addiction behind closed doors, but I did
Mhm.
have family that wanted to help me and love me, and none of that mattered. Like, I kept them away with a 10-foot pole, and so I can see now how even though the support was coming in, I didn't want it, and that's just the sad truth of being addicted to substances that completely take over our brain. Um, so how what do you do? There's just a lot of compassion that the person who is using alcohol is using it for a reason. Yes, they might be physically addicted, so we know that it takes over the body, but also I truly don't believe that anyone intentionally is going to do something that hurts them, which makes me think that the person using alcohol is doing it because they believe it's helping in some way, whether it's self-soothing, whether it's filling voids, whether it is helping them feel more confident or whatever it might be, that there's some purpose and that this alcohol is serving a purpose. I know I was drinking over just this feeling of despair. Like, what was my purpose in the world? What am I here to do? I'm a disappointment. And you don't want to feel those feelings. And so you use a tool that's going to quiet those feelings. So therefore, it's an effective
Mhm.
tool, right? Except we know that it's not. So from the outsider's perspective, it's like you can't undo the inner dialogue and those mistaken beliefs inside the addict, but with that compassion that you understand that they're deeply suffering on a soul level. And then with the connection, there's there is a time and place for um what's it called, intervention. There is a time and place for separation where the person has to protect themselves and pull themselves away from the addict's life, but at the end of the day what that person needs more than anything is connection. And so actually getting left behind is the worst thing that can happen. So it's like, how can someone stay engaged without self-sacrificing themselves and without taking it, upon themselves as personal responsibility for this person's survival, because it's going to be up to that person. So that's the very long answer to say there is no answer. there is no answer, and we're all just doing the best that we can, but education is important, awareness is important, compassion and connection are exceptionally important.
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of times, people forget that we tend to self-medicate to deal with certain issues or things that's happened before, and things like that too. And I deal with somebody personally close to me that's the case. Like I've heard some of their story, and it turned most people's hair white. If you heard half the things that this person was telling you, and you're just watching them just continue to self-destruct, and it's like, you don't wanna leave, but at the same time, it's like, how can you sit there and continue to watch? Because when they drink, it gets to the point where they turn into a whole nother person, like, they just mentally
Mhm.
check out, you know? And this same individual I've had PTSD moment with too, where they just went completely blank and just went berserk, and it's like the person is no longer there, the lights are on, but nobody's home,
Mhm.
preferably, literally what is going on because they didn't even remember the whole conversation. They're like, "Oh, what happened? What is all this? Why did?" I'm like, "You don't remember? You got went to a whole nother personality. Some number of Jekyll came out when, you were Doctor, saying the whole Dr. Hyde and Mr. Jekyll thing, the whole type two personality type thing comes on. Like they're one person and then they get to that point where it's like they switch to a whole nother person and it's like, oh no. It's like you don't want to be around that because it's just like, you don't know what they're gonna say, they're gonna do. And then it's
Yeah.
like, well, I don't remember I did any of that kind of stuff, and that's the scary part is like, when they get into that state of mind, it's like, you're not sure what to do next because you don't know who's coming out personality-wise at that point.
Mhm. I actually say that. I was like, I was unpredictable not only to my family, but I was unpredictable to myself. I didn't know who was gonna show up on a daily basis. But to go back to that conversation on what does someone from the outside do, and I kept using the word compassion,
Mhm,
it really is this understanding that they're not just drinking because they have no willpower or because they don't get it. It's again, it's being used as a tool. And so many times, like myself included, I didn't know there were other tools available. And so it's like, okay, so maybe the outside person can suggest a new tool for this addict to use. With that being said, the addict has to feel like it's safe because the stigma is so dang strong.
mhm.
Is it safe to actually tell someone what I'm drinking over? Is it safe to actually let people know what happened in my life? And the answer to that oftentimes is no. And so you just keep self-medicating. And so we have to pull it back and actually, like, stop looking at the alcohol and look at the fact that the system isn't set up for the person to step forward and say, "I have a problem. This is what's going on in my life. Please help me," without there being stigma or judgment and a shit ton of shame.
Yeah.
And that's just the truth. Yeah. That
Yeah,
kept me
it's
drinking for a long time.
well, yeah, 'cause like, when you tell people things, they're not ready for what you're gonna tell them too, because some people just can't handle those conversations, like suicide comes in a lot of times conversation. People freak out. They're like, "Oh shit," "What do I say next?" What is it? Molestation as a child comes up too. People don't know what to say then either. It's like sometimes just listening to what these people have to say is better than doing anything else you could do because they want to tell you about these problems, but it's hard for them to talk about it. And when they start
Mhm.
revealing these things and you start hearing these horrendous acts and things that happen, you're just like, well, damn, okay, I can see now why it is you didn't want to tell anybody because you don't know how they're going to judge you because it's so stigmatized that, when you start sharing your innermost thoughts, people start like judging you right off the bat. We had a girl that was on the show that's coming up. She's on 17 different medications for telling people these stories about what she was dealing with, and she's telling about these nasty ass comments people are making. Oh, well, go to a mental hospital, this and that. Oh, you're crazy. Da, da. It's like all things that, she doesn't need to hear, but she's telling you her story. But now you're being so negative that other people seeing this are going to be like, well, I don't want to say shit now because if this is what they're doing to her, imagine if my stuff's even worse than that. They're going to go off the rails on me next. And no matter what goes on, we always look at the negative comments. We don't look at the positive ones. We look straight at those negative ones because we're looking to see what people are saying because that's all we care. Oh, you
Yeah.
could say 1,000 good things, but that one negative comment's the one thing I'm staring at the whole time. Like, okay, what did that person say that they wanted to say that to me?
Yes. So there's something that I say when I start working with a woman who's changing her relationship to alcohol, and that is not everyone needs to know, but the right
Hmm.
people do. Because if we do tell the wrong people and we get that negative feedback, that can hole us up and wall us up, and we put up our guard again, and maybe we stay in the behavior. But when you tell the right people and you are supported, this is why I am such an advocate of community and of support groups, whatever that might look like, whether it's traditional 12 steps or whether it's just there's so many options out there now. When you get into a safe space with other people who know how to hold that sort of information, it is so life giving for the person who's maybe saying it out loud for the first time ever. It's also so life giving to the person who's saying it again to the right people, because not everyone can hold that information. So it's tricky, like, you just walk
Mhm.
up to someone and
It's
you
very
you just
tricky.
dump all over them all the reasons,
Mhm.
all of your traumas. I mean, some people won't know how to respond, but it's also not their job to know how to respond. But there is the, like, okay, the job is compassion, though. It's like, I won't judge this person, but they obviously need to talk to someone. I'm not the person. How can I show them who the right person is?
I think you just hit something in the head there. You said, "I won't judge," but that's the problem. A lot of people say, well, you can tell me whatever you want, but I won't judge you. But then they turn around and judge you, though. It's like, you just told me it's okay to tell you these things, but then you turn around because you weren't ready for what I was going to tell you. So, like, when people ask that question, I think they need to be ready for what's going to be said next. And, sometimes you're not going to be ready. Like, you're going to hear something people say that's going to scare you so bad, you're going to be like, oh, hell no. And that's
Mhm.
why, like, for me in the mental health space where I'm at, suicide is that one button issue because it's like you're literally talking about taking your own life, and people are just like panicked. They're like, "Oh shit, what do I say?" Because I don't want to say the wrong thing and set this person off the edge. And then it's like, what am I going to do something, or something I say could possibly push them to go over that edge? When in fact it's
Yeah.
nothing you could do, or when they've committed the act, and it's well. Could I've done? What were they thinking? And a lot of times we don't know what people are thinking. It's so many mixed different answers to what your thought process is because when I was on the edge, it's like you're looking over the edge. You're not listening to anybody else. You're looking over that edge, proverbial edge, and me and somebody else, we explored this. She literally was looking over the edge in the conversation because she was like, I'm literally in Hawaii, staring, looking over the edge, ready to go. And it's like you're at that moment, and then if you tell somebody you did, then you get treated weird, just like any addict. It's like you get treated differently. Like, this person that I
Mhm.
was talking about and referenced, they had a known history of abusing pills and things like that too, and stuff like that. And their family members started acting really weird about it. Like, I kept like anything goes missing, instantly they were the first person they accused.
Yeah.
And things like that too. And it's so hard, and like and you've already been on my buddy Jay's show, Rock and Recovery. His stories too are some of the shit he tells is crazy. It's just like, whoa, it's like, but people aren't ready to hear these conversations to be had, and when it comes to
Mhm.
addiction, I gave a good friend advice. Like I said, listen, if you're gonna be in this thing, you're gonna be in this thing, or you're gonna be out this thing. Don't be going halfway and say, oh, I'm gonna be here for you, and then ride the rocky ride and then go, well, I can't handle this anymore. I gotta get out. Don't do that to somebody, because once you leave, you can't come back in. They're not going to allow you to come back because they're going to be like, well, when are you going to leave me again? And it kind of goes like when my fear of abandonment for me is like, when I was 10, my mom left me. So now I go back to that anytime I get in that sense, that moment, my cat like sense goes in. I start getting like your hair's really standing on edge, and you're going in that moment, but you don't realize that's the moment you're in. It's the
Yeah.
same exact thing. Would you not say the same thing too? Because if somebody were there for you and like, well, Lauren, I'm here for you, da, 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 and then they just left you and said, oh, well, I just couldn't handle it, and then come back, you're gonna be like, I don't know, when are you gonna leave again this time? Because that thought dwells in the back of your head the whole time.
Mhm. Yes. Again, lots of points we can touch on here, but to answer that last question, it's devastating. It's absolutely devastating when the person who is suffering feels brave enough to be vulnerable and to expose, and then the person leaves. It is very devastating. It happened to me. It sent me spiraling back. That being said, I I really do believe in personal empowerment as well, and this is, of course, so much easier said than done, but for instance, that happened to me, and I did go back and I spiraled, and then I made the choice to show up again. So it's like, even though I felt betrayed, or even though I felt rejected after being vulnerable and exposing my darkest secrets, I'm gonna try again, because maybe this next person will be able to show up for me, and that's kind of required. It's like, it's unfortunate that that happened, but don't die over it for yourself, like, because 'cause
Mhm,
I'm
mhm.
a suicide survivor myself as well. And so I know that getting as low as you can possibly get before death. Um, and I just keep thinking if I hadn't have stepped back forward a second time and said, "No, I actually this, that, and the other," then where would I be today? You know? And then back to the communication side of things, and with like the right people need to know, not everyone does.
Yeah.
Communication is a two-way street. And so I don't think it's fair, for lack of a better word, for to just trauma dump onto someone without first asking them if they're willing to hold it. Are you willing to listen to my story? Because someone who's not able to, whether that's emotionally, mentally, spiritually able to hold it, is going to make it feel like rejection to the person talking. When really it says nothing about you, it's all about them. They can't handle it, and like give them an opportunity to say no,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
here's maybe someone else who can. And I think that's really important too. It's like it's two ways, and I don't want to just always cast blame on the people that can't hold space for the person who has the trauma.
No, I love it. I love it that you're not blaming anybody. You're like, okay, let me prepare you for what's about to happen. Are you ready? Can you handle it? And if they say no, don't feel discouraged. I mean, because like you said, they may not be ready for what you're going to say next. At least they're honest with you, though. Too. That's the other thing too.
Exactly.
I think you should take away that from the conversation. At least somebody's they're really being honest with you. Like, listen, I don't think I can handle what you're going to say next. If it falls into
Oh,
like, when I start talking about certain things, people are like, "Oh, well, if it falls in these categories, don't count me in because I can't be a part of it." And I'd rather someone let me know what they can and can't talk about. And a lot of times when, we're doing these interviews, we get into some touchy subjects of things. And I tell people, I'm like, if we hit a soft spot, let me know to get away from it, or give me some kind of signal that, hey, listen, we're getting a little too deep. I don't want to be this area. Let's get out. And I'll even this thing pivot. I'll do whatever I need to get you through this thing, and let me know where our boundaries are. And a lot of times, depending on what the subject is, we'll usually have a quick talk right beforehand. I'm like, okay, listen, what areas do I not touch? And that way we don't get near it during the interview. That way they're not uncomfortable because
yeah.
when you're talking mental health, we can talk a broad subject of things. Like we cover everything in the show. I've covered a lot of subjects. We even had a guy talk about a suicide ideation. He almost killed himself that morning on the show. It like the beginning of the year, the show, the first year, my first 200 interviews I was doing, he had come
Mhm.
on and you could tell something was wrong with him and he just started sharing this story. And I was like, okay. And I wasn't prepared for what he was about to say next. And he literally was just like, well, Pete, I was sitting at the edge of the bed. I had the gun in my hand and I was like, oh my God, this dude's talking about killing himself. And I realized it in my brain, what's going on. And like on the screen, you can't tell I'm panicking, but in my brain, I'm like, oh shit, we're about to go down an avenue I'm not ready for that we've not explored yet. Here we go. Let's go. And, we
Mhm.
dove into it. Then you found his friend, he had lost to suicide a few months ago, and it was really hurt, holding him up, and you could tell. But after he talked about it, it was like you could see that this guy's whole mood changed. His whole energy just kind of like gave off. He just gave off, like he was in a better place after getting it off his chest because when he put it out there for people to hear, but it was a rough episode. I think that one in Narcissistic Exes was another one that really, really struck a nerve with a lot of listeners. Me and another person who runs a podcast called You Have the Power, we had gotten to
Mhm.
that topic and it was just like, oh man, people were like, yeah, Pete, I had to stop 30 minutes in, man, because it got rough. And I
Mhm.
experienced the same thing too because I had the honor to be on a panel with people where a Holocaust survivor was the guest. And we got
Mm.
to interview this gentleman, and I went and listened to his actual story. I had to stop 30 minutes into this thing because it was like, whoo, man, we were getting intense. Like what he tells you in that interview in that panel is nothing close to what his actual story is because he gets into greater detail about the things he's looking at and the way he conversates about it's just like it's just normal to him. And it's like, but we have to understand, like at the time he was young when this happened. So, but not to
Mhm.
pivot too far, but we get into
Yeah.
such interesting topics. So let's talk about the book. Blurred
Yes.
Lines, My Reclamation of Power from Alcohol Addiction. I like to go, yes, you're not powerless, because I think that's so cool. I like the title of that though. So what was the inspiration of the book? Is this like your own personal journey basically on page for people to see?
It is. It's basically memoir. Um, my life was really built around secrets. It's the secrets that almost killed me. Like I said, my addiction, a lot of it was behind closed doors, and also the reasons that I was drinking over that I never shared with people, until I got sober. And so now that I feel very called to help other people through their own struggle and show them that reclamation of power and show them that there is a life available on the other side of addiction, I just decided to be a completely open book. And I have been an open book my entire sobriety journey. I actually came out as sober in my first 30 days. And I've been sober out loud ever since.
That's
But
awesome.
writing it in a book has been a really deep journey, and coming back to, like, other people being prepared for it, I actually sat my parents down, for instance, and was like, "Hey, just so you know, these things happened to me that I never told you about, and I want you to hear it from me
Oh.
first
Oh,
before you just
okay.
read it in my book." Um,
Oh,
you know,
okay.
just some bad, gross things, but now the book isn't intended to you'd have, like, a competition for who had it worse because I definitely don't have it the worst out of other people, but it
No,
doesn't
you're
matter
just
because
telling
there's
your
no
own story, you
competition,
know?
right?
Yeah,
I'm
I
just
get that, yeah.
telling exactly, just telling my story, but it was important to include the pivotal stories that really emphasize why I got to where I got as low as I got, again, with a suicide attempt. And then the
Mhm.
second half of book is that reclamation of power. It was that choice to become sober. It was that choice to get my life back. And then how the hell do I do that?
Mhm.
What now? And I think that's the part that's missing in a lot of sobriety memoirs. We have the dark, the dark, the dark, and then we get sober and then the book is done. And that's great. People love a good story. But I really wanted to show also the other side of it. It's not all it's glorious to be sober. It's glorious to be alive, and yet it's not easy. It's not all rainbows and butterflies. So I talk really honestly about the full journey and my shift in perspective that has basically made sobriety just who I am. Like I can say with conviction I will never go back, and I wrote a book about it.
Yeah. So my question though to you is that your parents, when you told them what was their response? I'm sure they were blown away when you started telling them the things that you're about to release to millions of people to see that this is no longer going to be quiet now. It's going to be a lot of questions that come with this for them, especially like how did you not know? That usual thing that comes out with all that stuff. Well, how did you not know this was going on? A lot of times people don't know. That's the thing. Like people ask the wrong questions sometimes when it comes to that. Well, how did you not know? Well, like Lauren said, I didn't tell you. Like, how are you gonna know?
I
We
didn't
we
tell you.
had we visited this with another guest I had. I don't know if you've ever seen this interview yet with Jen Robb. She was really her story was interesting when she found out about her daughter's situation and didn't realize what was going on. And then when she found out, she felt so hopeless because she was just like, "Oh my God, why didn't you tell us sooner?" But it's like, how do you tell somebody that? Because a lot of times, whatever the situation falls in, you telling somebody, a lot of times they're like, depending how young you are, they're like, "Oh, no, you're just making things up. That's not the case." And I think that we're too quick to dismiss these kind of things if it falls in the category. Because I'm kind of curious now. I want to read the book because I'm like, now I want to know. And it's more because it's about because I'm like, I want to know because I'm just curious to know that people's stories. Like, I'm so fascinated when I meet new people to learn. I'm always
Mhm.
interested to learn their stories. Like, there's one person I work with now. I am telling you right now, I really want to know something about her. I told her, I said, "You're like a puzzle, aren't you?" It's like, literally every day I'm saying things to her, like, I'm like, "You're a puzzle, like, I'm so curious about your story." She just smiles at me, and I'm like, "Yeah, you got something good, don't you?" And she just smiles at me, doesn't say anything. It's more because of the curiosity side to me, because once I got into this thing, it was just that same thing. It's like my own memoir, but this isn't my podcast version of a memoir. It's like my own journey,
Yeah.
but at the same time, and creating this space for people like yourself to come on and share these things. And you write these books and you're like, well, now we can talk about it. Well, Lauren's got a book. Go check it out. It's on Amazon, obviously, guys. It just came out. Obviously go check it out and let her know what you think. My next thought though is like the people that are involved in this I can't even imagine what the next thing was going to happen. I guarantee they're going to come out and say, "Oh, well, these are all lies. Lauren's telling lies about things." Is that what happened though? I mean, well, the book's
No,
still fairly
so
new, so we don't know for sure what's going on exactly
Mhm.
yet.
You know, that's a very good point. So my journey of authorship was through the lens of empowerment and how can I
Mhm.
help people. It was
Yeah.
not through the lens of pointing blame or
Yeah,
being a
exactly.
victim. I'm not out to get anyone in trouble. Like the intention behind writing a memoir is very, very important.
Exactly.
So the, at the end of the day, this is my story, and these things happen to me. And the key players who are unidentified will probably know who they are. But and that's just how it is, it's
They
like
have to
they're
lose that
probably
guilt
not
and
gonna
that
come
that
out.
shame essentially, you know what I mean? If they know what they did
Yeah.
and this now it's publicized and now they have to deal with the fact that they're that character, whatever you labeled them as in the book, they're whatever, whatever
Yeah.
scenario you want to put them as, you're Darth Vader or whatever the hell you want to come, whatever nerd terminology I can come up with, the opposite ego. You know what I mean? They're that person that now has to live with the regret of what they did, and now you're sharing this story, but you're not giving them the power to deny it because you're not labeling them exactly, but you're talking about the situation, correct?
Right. It's again, everyone has a story, and I kept mine a secret, and my secrets almost killed me. And so for me to not share my story is only at my own detriment, right? I'm not here again to blast anyone. I'm
No, you're
also
not.
not
Of
here
course
to
not.
caretake the people who hurt me. And so that is their own responsibility, and that is going to be their own healing journey if they choose to read the book and they feel feelings. Me writing the book is my healing journey. And I just think that's so important because, like, for instance, I was raped and the story is in there. And the reason why I didn't tell anyone it happened is because I was underage drinking at a bar. So I thought it was my fault, right? I was breaking the freaking law. I was underage at a bar. It didn't even occur to me that getting raped is not okay. And so that's the kind of secrets that I'm talking about, where it's like I was too scared to tell my parents because I thought I would get in trouble. When at the end of the day, my parents would have been there for me. They would have, whatever it took to make sure that we know that that sort of behavior is not okay. So that's the sort of thing where it's like, I have a story. I didn't tell anyone a lot of my story, and now I am telling it. And the reason why I'm telling it is because I've taken my power back from the people who took it from me.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that for sure. I mean, I know when it comes to that subject, it's very hard. The statistics are crazy. I did an episode with a woman named Tracy. She has an organization that deals with that kind of thing, where people can name the person in privacy, but then it'll only let you know if it matches up with somebody. If somebody else has reported the same person, kind of thing. But
Mm.
so thank you for sharing that, though. I mean, I know that's a tough subject, especially that because then there's the
Mhm.
shame that comes in because like you're gonna tell somebody what happened, and then it's like it affects your relationships later on because then it's like, how do I know this person's not gonna do the same thing? But I love the fact that you're not blaming anybody. I think with a lot of
Yeah.
books, I think that's the problem. It's a lot of blames casted instead of, somebody being like, you know what? This is not the point of the story. The point of the story is to share what happened to me. This is my journey. This is how I pivoted. And this is how I'm turning this into my own superpower now, essentially, to help other people because I've been there. You may not know me on a level, but you're sure as hell gonna know now because I'm telling you this stuff wide open, so openly with you and about it. And at the
Yeah.
same time, somebody's going to read this and go, well, damn, I'm just like, I would like Lauren. I've ran into this situation, hey,
Yeah.
I now don't feel so alone. And it's the same thing with this podcast. A lot of people I've met, people go, well, I heard someone else's story. So now I want to come talk about it, and they all say the same thing. And people come to me all the time and say, oh, I'm so happy what you're doing, this and that, and I deal with imposter syndrome a lot of times too, because it's a lot of times people tell me that my name's mentioned more than most people. It
Mm.
was funny because it's just like all I'm doing is creating this safe space for people like yourself to come talk about these things, and I'm so open to the idea when people tell me things, I'm very okay with it because it's like it's awesome to hear this, it's hard. And especially you to come out and say that and tell somebody that and then tell the eyewitness accounts of what happened. Dear God, I
Mhm.
couldn't even imagine trying to write a book about that because I'm just like, and things
Yeah.
like that too. And it's so awesome though that you took the time to write this book and now you're turning it into your own superpower because now you can use this because people relate to other people. I think that's a lot of times the credibility question doesn't come up enough with these people on social media. They're telling you, well, like I had Paul Bauer, which he is a men's coach. What I love about Paul and what I love about you is the same thing. You both don't blame anybody at all. And Paul's more about, empowering yourself. He's like, hey, listen, you can blame the opposite sex all you want, but it's you, the ultimate is the problem. It's Paul's aspect from it, and that's what I love about Paul is he's not blaming anybody but yourself. He's like, you need to fix yourself. In your
Yeah.
situation, you're not blaming anybody, but you're like, listen, this is what happened, but I'm turning this into like I'm pivoting this to like now I can help other people who've been in these situations and help them get to this point, and what you're doing is is really powerful, and it's amazing too. It's so awesome here that
Mm,
you're 8 years sober. It's great every day. Every time I hear that, and the same thing for Jay. Jay's thing, whole thing. Every time I see this, I hype it up because it's an accomplishment. People don't realize how hard it is to break these addictions. Like I didn't fall into it as deep as everybody else did, but there's stories
yeah,
that I just did worse things and and I admitted in another interview, and anybody listening to this now, if they've been listening to these, had already heard my story about how I was, drinking those tall boys. I shotgun six of them, Lauren, okay? Then I go
mm,
online and I'm verbally abusing people online, thinking this is
mm,
okay because I'm in an altered state of mind already. I've already dealing with my own problems. I'm dealing with stress at home. I'm dealing with, cycling my own thoughts of what, wanting to take my own life at that point, and I got a constant, the constant voice of telling you you're not worthy enough and things like that too. And I'm like, I would drink them so fast, in about 20 minutes, I'd have about 6 of them down, and I know it's a lot for a lot of people to hear, but it's like, it was just an example, like, of my experience. I started dabbling in it, and then that other one where I told you about, the whole driving home thing. I didn't
yeah,
get it as deep as a lot of these other people, but man, let me tell you, I don't know if I would ever make it out, honestly. Like, you guys are powerful. I don't know if I'd have the power to do it, honestly, and, hats off to you because, thankfully you're still here. First off, let's state that, because you are a suicide survivor.
yeah,
Thankfully, you're still here
mhm,
because if not, you wouldn't be able to doing the work you're doing now. So,
yeah.
and it's so
I
powerful.
I wanna thank you. I mean, obviously, we just met, and I just really wanna thank you for seeing my integrity as an author,
Definitely.
just based on what I've shared with you so far. I've done a lot of healing work around my addiction and the reasons why I was drinking and the things that have happened to me, and so I very much stayed in integrity as an author, writing from what I like to call the scars and
Yeah,
not from the open wounds.
definitely.
Right? So writing from the healed not that you're ever fully healed, but writing from the more healed version of Lauren versus the Lauren who is still very much in the pain. And that's the difference of the voice that I share. And I take a lot of ownership in my book as well. It's like I show the addict's thinking where everyone else is the problem and it's not me. I'm not the problem. Like I show that sort of very like I call myself out a lot in the book for my own way that, it was everyone else and not me. And that taking ownership is the power, is the power. And so, like, yes, while that wasn't okay, that should never have happened to me. I'm just talking about myself here, right?
Yeah, no, I get
I
you.
get to
No.
decide how I'm going to respond. And back then, 8 years ago, my response was through alcohol and drugs. But today I see that I don't have to respond that way anymore. And so we really do have that choice in how are we going to heal, survive, and move through and empower ourselves through these big events that happen in our lives. Like I said, mine was through alcohol and drugs until
Yeah.
I learned a new way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Lauren, let me ask you this though. When you reflect on those things, is it hard to reflect on them?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
never easy,
So,
right? And my point is, though,
yeah.
it's never easy, though. You taking your example, mine too,
Yeah.
because that's the thing. I start reflecting on a lot of things, and when I finally tell people that story, I don't know how people are gonna feel. Like there's a lot of things about me people don't know that I went through in like if I ever manage to write this book I've been talking about writing for the longest time, I just think like,
Mhm.
I think that's my biggest fear though, is I think that people are gonna look at me from a different way, but they have to understand that where I am now versus where I was at is it's a whole nother Pete. That was the different Pete back then. That was a terrible person. I was a
Yeah.
horrible person. Like we won't get deep into it. That's a whole nother episode of like cleaning out the closet with Pete. Like there's
Yeah.
some things I would tell I'm gonna tell people that are just gonna be like, what the fuck, Pete? But, I mean, I love it though. I think that, you're using the addict's perspective is interesting because now you're touching a different base of people too. You're appealing to them because you know what
Mhm.
they've been through. Because, like I said, a lot of times, all these people are like, well, what do you know? That's usually the first question that comes to mind. Well, what the hell do you know about anything? And then when you start sharing your story, it's like, well, a matter of fact, let me
Yeah.
tell you about my story. And you start sharing it. And then people are like, well, never mind. Okay. All right. You have a point. I think that's the best. That's the best curb appeal for most people is that you've been there. You've been through these
Yeah.
things. You're not just some person like on TV trying to sell us, self-help tapes and things like this, like those old school commercials and stuff, or like Billy Mays, they're selling us whatever random product he's got, trying to entice you. Oh, it's so exciting to try these things. You've been through the thing, you've been through the trenches, you've done these kind of things. So, hats off to you
Yeah.
for sharing that story though. Like, I think that, it takes a lot of power to do it, honestly. You're telling your story about rape, and you're sharing this with millions of people, you know,
Mhm.
in a book, and now you're on podcast talking about it too a little bit, and it's empowering because somebody's gonna hear this story one way or they're gonna read the story, and you're gonna do something. And even if you touch one person's heart, that's it. You've won the battle right there. You've done enough for everybody that you meet, so
Yeah.
hats off to you.
Thank
Well,
you.
we're at the fun part of the show. Okay. So I don't know if you ever
Okay.
watch these episodes. All right. So I ask a very important question. Now, Jay tries to butcher my question, so forget him, anyways. I love giving him a hard time, by the way. In case anybody doesn't know, Jay and I like to mess around a lot, so I like to give him a hard time sarcastically a lot. So, he's like, "Well, Pete, tell us this question." So the question I ask everybody, Lauren, is that if your mental health had a song, what would that song be? Now, you could say the first song that comes to mind. You can break this down however you want. It could be even be an emotion. We had somebody recently on a couple episodes that, by this point, if you're following them, you've already heard the answer. Somebody else had just given an emotion they felt with it. So, what would that song be?
Okay, so I have 2. The very first one that came to mind was obviously Blurred Lines,
Hmm.
since that's the title of my book, and it's such a fun, catchy song, right? Who is that? Rob Thick, and
I think
oh my
that's who
gosh,
it
I can't even
is.
think of the artist now, but we know the song Blurred Lines.
Hmm.
But the second song that comes to mind, which maybe people don't know about, it's I Am by Song. And that song I learned in my sobriety, but he's basically saying that the world is trying to tell you that you're not free, but you are free. And I love that so much. I drank over so many reasons. Like I forgot, I forgot who I was. Like the world taught me to forget, right? Just all the conditioning and all the mistaken beliefs. And then you remember. And it's like, I mean, you talk about writing this book, and I'm like, of course I'm going to talk about the book because that old way almost killed me. And now I'm going to take my power back. So that's the song that gets me is I Am by Song.
I love
You're
it. I
free.
love it.
Yeah.
Definitely. This is because when that question originally came to me, it was from a friend of mine. She has a podcast called The Shit That Goes On in Our Heads. Her and I
Love
were
that.
discussing it, and I did the same thing. I broke it down into multiple songs, and mine change up every day. And I know it sounds weird because I
Oh, yeah.
love music. I'm a big music guy. So, like, mine change up a little bit. So, like, the intro song to this one to this podcast currently is It Me by Let Me Bleed. Like a lot of their stuff kind of resonates a
Mm,
little bit, like Worthless is a really good song for me too. It's like, you feel like you're with this person. It's like I don't like this person that you make me be kind of thing. And when I got asked the question originally, I broke it down as my depressive moments were Leave a Light On, Talk Away the Dark by Papa Roach. I feel like it's such a powerful song. It's
yeah.
hard to listen to. I don't like the Carrie Underwood version, so everybody come for me if you like. I don't like it. I respect Carrie Underwood as a person, but I just feel like I don't like the intention. I don't like the song that way, but I like the original one.
Mm,
And then if I
mhm.
had to pick my anxiety moments, it could be many songs, honestly. It'd be
Yeah.
something fast paced punk rock. Um, what is it? I'm trying to think what that song is now. It's one by Anti Flag. I can't think what it's called now.
Mm,
I think it's State Funeral, one of those other ones. It's a real fast paced song. I kind of think I know what it is. There's a few of them that actually fall in that category. But
yeah.
I had multiple different answers to it. I think the most interesting answer was one by an author named Susan Snow. She does the other side. She wrote The Other Side of the Gun, and she said it's Rage Against the Machine. I started laughing hysterically. I was like, because she's like, Pete, you're gonna make fun of me if I tell you this. I'm like, no, I'll never make fun of y'all. I think it's interesting because I go and check out some of the song choices I've never heard. I'm like, well, let me go check this out. Maybe it's something I like. I add to my list.
Yeah.
So let's get into the question of all time. Okay, so the reason this podcast exists, the main question is if you could break this stigma about mental health or addiction, it doesn't matter either one, what would that be? And this could be anything like, you just hate hearing people say all the time, and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Something you see every day, things like that. Doesn't have to be limited. It's no wrong answers to these questions.
There's so many ways to answer this question. I think the best way I'm going to answer it is to highlight something I already said. It just really is so defeating to me that someone might not believe that they can have a better life. Like, you don't have to settle. So, I'm not talking about the down and out bottom of the bottle addicts. I'm talking about the air quote normal person who thinks that good is good enough. And I want to tell every single person that it can be great, and we get to design that greatness. But we have to blast through the stigma saying that your problem has to be so radically huge for you to make a change in your life, when no, you
Exactly.
can change anything in your life that is robbing you of your satisfaction and your expansion. I mean, if someone is lactose intolerant, they're going to cut dairy out, no questions asked. It's like if someone's having a problem with alcohol, drink or like cut it out, no questions asked. But that's what I would say about the stigma is only you can decide what is acceptable to you. Only you can decide if your life as it stands today is acceptable to you. And if the answer is no, then you have the power and the choice to make a change. We are
Absolutely.
human beings. We have choice. And so that's what I would say. It's like empowering the person to make choices, even if they are scared of getting judged, even if it blasts them out of the social circle that they're in, because at the end of the day, they are the most important person in their world and it should be exactly how they want to live it.
Exactly. I love it. Absolutely love it, Lauren. Thank you so much for being here today. Lauren, before we start wrapping up, do you want to go ahead and let people know where they can find you? YouTube, Instagram. What is the best way for us to reach Lauren if they want to come by and support the book? Obviously, go to Amazon, buy the book, guys. Where do you want them to come see you at? I mean, are you everywhere? Where do you prefer the best?
I'm not everywhere. I don't really love social media, to be honest. Okay, you can find me at blurredlinesbook.com.
Hmm.
That will get you straight to the book. It'll also get you to my website. And then my Instagram handle is at Lauren Fay Coaching, Fay, Lauren Fay Coaching.
Love it. Love it. Well, with that being said, guys, we're going to wrap up this episode of Pete for Society. Once again, Lauren, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us today. I had a great time. I was so excited when I got to see that you were on my buddy's show, and I was like, yep, she's coming next to me. I can't wait. So, thank you
Yay!
again for coming and sharing your story with us. I really appreciate it. I know it's a hard topic, but it's a tough topic that someone has to be there. And I'm so glad they have you on their side battling for them. I really do.
Thank you, Pete. That means a lot. Really appreciate that.
You're so welcome. And with that being said, guys, we're going to wrap up this episode of Pete vs. Anxiety. I'm Pete vs. Anxiety on TikTok all the way down to X. I'm on Spotify all the way down to Pandora Radio. Yes, I'm everywhere now. I know, guys. And as I always say, it costs nothing, absolutely nothing to be kind to somebody. One kind act you can do can save someone's life, or hell, you can make their day. I'm Pete vs. Anxiety signing out saying, don't ask how your day is today. Say, hey, how's your mental health today?